Coming up on this Monday edition of Daybreak, for the first time since taking office, President Park Geun-hye at a televised press conference will publicly lay out her administration's goals and try to allay concerns about her lack of communication with the public. Former presidential candidate and independent lawmaker Ahn Cheol-soo names a former environment minister and long-time political strategist as the latest co-chair of his committee to establish a new political party. Plus, while meaningful talks between the South Sudanese government and rebels failed to take place in Ethiopia on Sunday, fighting between the warring factions intensifies in the world's newest state. Daybreak begins now.
Thanks for joining us. You're watching Daybreak. I'm Choi here in Seoul. Let's start with President Park's first ever press conference since taking office almost 1 year ago. Officials say the president later on this Monday morning will lay out her plans for state affairs this year and take questions from reporters on a range of issues. President Park has been criticized for her perceived detachment from the people, for not communicating her policies directly to the media. The president's plans for the new year are believed to center on revitalizing the economy, bolstering national security, and reforming public enterprises. The 70-minute press conference will be broadcast live on Arirang TV from 10 a.m. Korea time. Independent lawmaker Ahn Cheol-soo's plan to form his own political party to challenge the dominance of the two leading parties has taken another step forward. His new politics committee has recruited a veteran conservative strategist as its fifth co-chair. Our Kim Hyun-ji has the details.
Yoon Yeol-jun, former environment minister and veteran strategist who has long been associated with the conservative bloc, is now officially part of Ahn Cheol-soo's team, aimed at promoting his vision of new politics. The 74-year-old strategist is known as Ahn's political mentor.
Former Environment Minister Yoon Yeol-jun is firmly convinced that Korea is in need of regional reform.
Yoon said he felt a sense of responsibility to support Ahn.
I've been thinking that the constant confrontation between the two rival parties has long divided the country into two. I also thought the event of Ahn Cheol-soo was a historical inevitability.
Yoon says the ruling Saenuri Party and main opposition Democratic Party are the politics of the first and second generations. He said the ruling party still imitates first-generation politics, which had been authoritarian and nationalistic. Yoon said the Democratic Party has not overcome the street politics of popular democracy of the second generation. The Democratic Party fired back, saying Ahn must first show what his new politics are really about.
Ahn Cheol-soo has not revealed whether the color of his so-called new politics is red, blue, or yellow. Merely criticizing the two rival parties will not answer all the questions people have for him.
The Saenuri Party took aim at Yoon Yeol-jun, calling him an outdated figure who has migrated from one political camp to another.
We have deep doubts about whether Yoon Yeol-jun is the right person for Ahn Cheol-soo's new politics.
During the 2004 general election, Yoon helped President Park Geun-hye, then chairwoman of the Grand National Party, now the Saenuri Party, restore the party's approval ratings, which had tumbled after it attempted to impeach late President Roh Moo-hyun. Kim Hyun-ji, Arirang News.
The top foreign policymakers from South Korea and the United States are due to meet in Washington this week for talks that are expected to mostly focus on North Korea and Japan. Officials say South Korean Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se and U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry are scheduled to hold talks on Tuesday to coordinate their North Korea policies following the recent execution of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's uncle Jang Song-taek. They will also seek ways on how to restart the stalled six-party talks on the North denuclearization. Yoon is also expected to bring up Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's recent visit to the controversial Yasukuni Shrine, the resting place of several Class A war criminals, and deliver Seoul's stance that such acts raise tensions in Northeast Asia. A new subsidiary of the state-run rail operator Korail could open as early as this week. The creation of the affiliate is what sparked the nation's longest ever rail strike last month, with unionized workers accusing Korail and the government of attempting to privatize rail services. Ahn Cheol-soo has this report.
Korail's new subsidiary is a step closer to launch. The state-run rail operator says the affiliate, which will operate KTX bullet trains departing from Suso, a station in southern Seoul, is beginning to take shape and may open as early as this week. Korail received a business license from the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure and Transport at the end of last month and has set office at its headquarters in Daejeon. 50 employees, mainly from Korail, are expected to be dispatched within this week. The workforce will gradually expand to over 400 people. In an effort to minimize costs, Korail plans to hire externally, except for core employees such as engineers and crew members. Once construction of the railway is completed by the end of next year, the Transport Ministry expects an average of nearly 55,000 travelers a day to use the line in 2016. Korail says that as Suso will be the second KTX departure station in the capital, the internal competition between it and Seoul Station will generate new demand, improve efficiency, and drive bigger profits. However, the labor union still believes Korail's move will eventually open the door towards the privatization of the company. Unionized workers filed a lawsuit last week demanding the government withdraw its license for the subsidiary. Kwon-so-ah, Arirang News.
The growth of outbound shipments by Korea's small and medium-sized businesses surpassed those of family-controlled conglomerates last year. The Korea Federation of SMEs says exports by the country's small to mid-sized firms jumped a bit over 4% to $168 billion from January to November last year compared to a year earlier. The expansion is noticeably higher than the 0.5% annual growth posted by conglomerates during the same period. The Federation, which recently gave an optimistic outlook on SME exports this year, says efforts should be made to stabilize the foreign exchange market and to support the business's export competitiveness. The number of foreign tourists to Korea increased last year, but that hasn't translated into economic gains, as the relative strength of the Korean won appears to have made tourists less willing to spend during their stay in the country. Our Son Jung-in reports.
The number of overseas travelers to Korea has been growing steadily over the last decade, with the number surpassing the 12 million mark for the first time just last month. This represents a 9% increase from the 11,140,000 visitors who came to Korea in 2012 and the 12,100,000 in 2013, according to the Korea Culture and Tourism Institute. Yet, the surge in foreign visitors has not resulted in a corresponding increase in the amount of income from tourism during the same period. The amount of production spurred by tourism decreased to $24.2 billion in 2013, down from $25 billion the previous year, while the number of jobs lost because of the loss of tourism revenue fell by around 6,500. Industry analysts say the reason for the trend is that tourists are less willing to spend in Korea because of the won's rise against the dollar. In fact, the average spending for foreign tourists was $1,130 per person in 2013, down from $1,207 in 2012, with their combined expenditure dropping by nearly $480 million. Experts say in order to turn the situation around, the government should come up with ways to customize package tours and improve customer satisfaction levels in order to meet the changing demands of foreign tourists. Son Jung-in, Arirang News.
if you want the latest news from Korea and around the world.
Return to the negotiation.
President Park Geun-hye planned, given the current circumstances.
On your way to work or at home.
Defense Ministry. The legislature will convene a.
Tune into Daybreak on Arirang TV.
Prime Minister Shinzo Abe said Tuesday. The two warring parties from South Sudan were to meet face-to-face for the first time on Sunday, but talks to thrash out a ceasefire deal and end weeks of conflict in the world's newest state appear to be delayed. The U.S. welcomes the talks, but says they should not be used to buy time. Our Kim Min-ji has the details.
Representatives from the rival parties in South Sudan are due to meet for peace talks in Ethiopia, marking the first direct exchange between the two warring factions since the conflict broke out last month. The talks set for Sunday appear to be delayed, while Reuters reported that the government and rebels have met mediators, but not each other yet. The talks will focus on a ceasefire deal as well as the release of political prisoners. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry has voiced support for the talks, saying it was an important step, but that both sides need to put the interests of South Sudan above their own. He also said the peace talks must not be a gimmick to buy time to win the upper hand on the ground. The fighting pits supporters of President Salva Kiir against rebels led by former Vice President Riek Machar. President Kiir accuses forces loyal to Machar of attempting to launch a coup, which they deny. The rebels have taken over major towns in the oil-producing region, while the international community has been on standby for what could be the first civil war in the world's youngest country. At least 1,000 people have died and some 200,000 have been displaced by the conflict. Meanwhile, fighting continued in the oil-producing Unity and Upper Nile states in the north on Sunday. Clashes also broke out in Juba late Saturday, with gunfire heard coming from a district in the south of the city, before a calm returned in the morning. In a separate development, a South Sudanese army general was killed Sunday in an ambush outside the rebel-held town of Bor. The general was with a convoy advancing on Bor when rebels fired on it. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
The United States is leaning on Israel and Palestine to make tough choices to reach a peace agreement. Wrapping up his 10th visit to the region in just 12 months on Sunday, U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry said Washington was committed to drawing up a fair and balanced peace plan. His comments came at the end of 3 days of shuttle diplomacy between Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas. Kerry reportedly asked Abbas to recognize Israel as the Jewish homeland. Abbas has repeatedly rejected the demand, saying it would compromise the rights of Palestinian refugees and Israel's Palestinian citizens. Israel is also highly likely to reject any security concessions for an area of the occupied West Bank. Korea has become a long way over the years, but the nation still lacks much of a safety net for the most vulnerable members of society. Korea's ratio of social security expenditure to its overall spending ranks the lowest in the 30-member OECD. According to the OECD's Government at a Glance report on Sunday, Korea's spending on social security accounted for around 13% of its entire expenditure in the year 2011. Denmark and Germany, which topped the list, spent almost 45% of their overall spending on social security. On the other end of the scale, Korea ranked first for its expenditure on economic affairs, directing 20% of its total expenditure to that. The Korean wave has spread across the globe on the back of the exploding popularity of K-pop and dramas. However, challenges remain for the cultural phenomenon in 2014 and beyond as it struggles to maintain its momentum. From games to cartoons, our Polly reports on the future of the Korean wave.
2013 was another huge year for the Korean wave, as Psy's Gentleman attracted over 600 million views online, while Girls' Generation won Video of the Year at the YouTube Music Awards. Despite the sluggish global economy, Korea's content industry is forecast to post $5.1 billion in exports for 2013, up nearly 11% on year. But it wasn't K-pop leading the charge. According to the Korea Creative Content Agency, overseas sales by local game companies accounted for over half of the nation's content exports last year. Animation and character licenses came in second at 9%, followed by music and TV programming. In order for the Korean wave to stay relevant and grow in 2014, experts say the industry will need to diversify. Korean films and musicals are being considered as the next big thing due to their surging popularity at home and abroad.
K-pop and Korean dramas were central to the start of the Korean wave. Now we expect games, animations, and other next-generation contents to further diversify the Korean wave.
The need for fresh changes comes as global audiences may be feeling fatigue from the army of K-pop idols. A survey by the Korea Foundation for International Culture Exchanges showed that about 60% of international respondents said the Korean wave would begin to lose steam within the next 5 years, while 18% of those polled believe it had already run its course. Critics say the government should do more to promote cultural diversification rather than playing it safe with past successes.
Britain and France are actively supporting creators and cultural content producers in terms of policies or capital. However, the Korean government is not playing a leading role. There is a need for supportive policies that do not interfere.
Korea has a tremendous amount to offer the world, including fashion, food, literature, and so much more. And as the Korean wave evolves with the next generation of fans, it too will embrace other cultures and peoples. Paul Yi, Arirang News.
And a good Monday morning to you all as we kick things off with the National Figure Skating Championships that took place over the weekend. With all eyes on figure queen Kim Yeon-ah, she didn't disappoint as she fell just short of breaking her own world record. Now on Saturday, Kim Yeon-ah performing to Send in the Clowns for her short program was absolutely flawless, breaking the 80-point mark for the first time ever as she scores 80.60. And on the following day, it was time for her free skating as she performed to Anio's No Niño. And despite a slight mistake on her jump, she's still able to score 147.26 for a total of 227.86, missing the world record from the 2010 Vancouver Games by just 0.5 points as she prepares for the Sochi Winter Games coming up next month. And staying with the National Figure Skating Championships, while all eyes were on Kim Yeon-ah, there were two other figure skaters who looked very impressive as well. The so-called Kim Yeon-ah's kids, Park So-yeon and Kim Hae-jin, seems to get better and better with each competition as the two 16-year-olds finished second and third behind their role model, Kim Yeon-ah. Now, Park So-yeon would score 52.31 on the short program, followed by an impressive 125.86 in free skating for a total of 178.17. While Kim Hae-jin started off strong with a 58.48 in the short program, followed by a weaker free skating performance to finish third with a 159.75 overall. The two figure skaters will be competing at Sochi with hopes of finishing on the podium as well. And now moving on to the 2013-2014 WKBL All-Star Game. The Stars came out to the Chuncheon Hoban Stadium for the annual matchup, and it was quite a close game. Now just a back-and-forth game from the start as the Central team led by Ahn Cheol-soo took a slim 22-20 lead before going into halftime with a 44-43 lead. For the third quarter of the game, the South team kicks it up a notch thanks to Shinhan Bank's Kim Dan-bi as they rally back to take a 5-point lead going into the fourth quarter. The Central team continues to push hard but falls short as the South team takes this game 98-90 to win for the first time in 5 years. And over to some Sunday's KBL action as the Ulsan Mobis Phoebus cruised past Incheon Itilan Elephants 83-63 with the Seoul Samsung Thunders beating Jeonju KCC Aegis 80-71. So with that said, let's take a look at the Goyang Orions take on the Changwon LG Shakers. Now, first quarter of the game, Anthony Richardson leads the way with 8 points for the Orions as they take a 19-13 lead before outscoring them 24-19 in the second quarter to go into halftime with a comfortable 43-32 lead. Now, not much difference in the second half of the game as well, and despite Chris Massey lighting it up in the fourth quarter, the Goyang Orions hang on to take this game
80-75, your final score. And finishing things off with some Sunday's V-League action, the IBK Altos continue to dominate the Women's League as they beat Daejeon KGC in straight sets 3-0. Meanwhile, Hyundai Capital Skywalkers took on Samsung Bluefangs, so let's take a look at the highlights. Now, Hyundai Capital looking very strong from the start as they take the first set 25-18 before cruising through in the second set 25-23 to take a 2-0 lead. But the Samsung Bluefangs answer back with a monster third set win 25-15. Leo Martinez puts up game-high 40 points, but Liberman Algamez, despite his 15 errors, still puts up 39 attack points as Hyundai Capital takes the fourth set 25-22 and a 3-1 victory to take first place. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Good Monday morning to you. I'm Lee Ji-hyun with your latest weather forecast. Well, I hope you had a wonderful weekend, and it looks like we'll kick off the second week of January with a relatively mild weather condition, though morning lows will be on the chilly side, so be sure to bundle up before heading out this morning. But afternoon highs will rise quickly as we go through the day. And we'll have lots of sun to start out the day, and we should continue to see mostly sunny skies for the entire day across the nation. And thankfully, the level of fine dust particles will be normal. So let's enjoy this mild winter condition while it's here, because we have nationwide rain in the forecast on Wednesday, and temperatures will plummet later in the week. And on Friday, we'll wake up to morning low of -10 here in Seoul and surrounding areas. So a serious cold snap is definitely on its way. With that in mind, here are the readings for today. Seoul is starting out at -4 and afternoon highs will peak to 6, while Daegu and Gwangju wake up to daily low at -2 and -3 and will get up to 8 respectively. And Busan will see an afternoon high at 11 later in the afternoon with lots of sun. Now let's see how other regions are looking. It looks like people in Jeju will enjoy mild afternoon with the top temperature soaring to 9. Daejeon and Dokdo will reach at 6 and 3, but the top temperature in Mount Kumgang will be at -1. Now that's all for Korea, and here's the global forecast for viewers around the world. That's all for me at this hour. Enjoy your morning commute and hope you have a wonderful Monday.
Hope everyone's off to a good start of the week. This has been Choi Yoo-sun in Seoul. Thank you for watching.